Hello, hello,
Hey,
hello.
hey, hey! How you
Welcome
doing?
back for another episode of X2Z. Today we have with us Matthew Richardson, and I've decided that I'm going to be the second person in the world that calls him that. So no one else can do this. This is just a me and Matt thing because we're Matthew. Sorry, because we're besties now. But no one calls you Matt. Really? Like just your grandparents?
Yeah, my grandmother calls me Matthew. My nana used to. She's no longer here, but yeah, that's the only one that calls me Matthew. Obviously, I used to get it as a kid when I was in trouble.
Yeah.
I did get the Matthew Michael, and then
Matthew
I had to be
Michael,
had
the
to be
Eminem.
something. Wasn't Yeah, I'm sharing lots of secrets here with you guys.
Maybe that should be the new nickname, Matt. We should be going for Eminem and moving away from Chop. I've heard your dad call you Chop 100 times. How did that nickname come about for you?
Yeah, so there's some in the industry like yourself that do know me as Chop. I've had that nickname since I was a kid, like a baby.
Like, was it a
I
pork
guess it
chop
stems.
around your neck that your dad hung on you, or like what was the
Yeah,
story?
yeah, something like that. No, I guess I had really big cheeks when I was a baby, so like big choppers or chompers, however you want to
That
word
makes
it. So
sense.
Squeezable
That
cheeks.
makes
it
sense.
was chopper as a baby, and then living in a smaller town, you grew up playing sports and kind of. I mean, Caledonia's not that small anymore, but when I was growing up, it sure was. So once I got into playing hockey and other sports, chopper kind of stuck, and it was all the way through. And that's outside of work, that's pretty much what I'm called. My wife calls me Matt. Obviously, she doesn't call me Chopper. That'd be a little weird. But that's pretty much what I'm known
And
as. So even
did
people are surprised that even in high school, like my I want to say grade 11 and 12 years, on my student card it actually said Chop Richardson. So
That's
When
amazing.
you
even
when
myself.
you walked across the stage and they were like, next person graduating is, was it Matthew, or like Matthew,
Well,
Matt, or Chopper?
thank you for assuming I graduated. Um,
And you
that,
did.
that's a good start. No, it was Matt Richardson when I walked across the stage.
There you go. That's
That's good.
funny.
That's good.
I,
The
I do appreciate the confidence in my education, Hannah. Thank you.
I
well,
mean, I
and
assume most people graduate high school.
I've known Matt since he was in university. Sorry, we're in Canada right now. So when Matt was in university, he attended Hannah one of the schools that you would have considered because most of your friends, uh, like Matt, went to University of Guelph,
Oh, Guelph.
right?
Guelph.
The
Yeah.
Oh.
Great Agricultural School of Ontario. And for Matt, it was like Matt, you did a business. What degree did you do there?
Yeah, business and psychology.
Business and psychology. But really, is it not fair to say that you studied football there?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. That if it wasn't for the opportunity to play university football, I mean, I started getting recruited probably grade 11 ish out of high school. So there were a number of schools that I could have went to, but if it wasn't for the opportunity to play football, university was not my plan.
Okay,
It was going to be 2 years college and straight to work. Get a do something business wise in college, be done with it quick, and right to work. But
right.
am I ever glad the football opportunity was there, because those years at Guelph were amazing.
That's
That's cool.
great.
Had you
That's
always
great.
anticipated going into the family business, or had you originally anticipated doing something different?
Yeah, no, it was definitely always on my mind, because I mean, as you know, Hannah, growing up in a family business, even if I mean, you grow up in it. Even if your parents and mom and dad try to keep the conversations or a lot of the conversations out of the house about it still finds its way back. I feel like you get to know from an early age that the reason you're able to do some of the things you are and your family are is as fortunate as you are is because of the family business. So you're kind of it's in you from a very early age.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, So it was definitely always something that I had in the back of the mind. You know, when I was really young, I wanted to be a WWF wrestler. Thankfully, I grew out of that
Oh man,
because
no, I want to see that. I want to see that. You got the build for it. You could press a guy. Man, you could ragdoll a boy. Okay, so
yeah,
so
Maybe
just
that should be your next industry event. I think you draw a bigger crowd.
oh yeah, you know what? Maybe me versus Matt in WWE wrestling.
Oh my gosh, let's
Um,
that
sell
would
the
be good.
tickets. It'll be a
We
sold
should
out crowd.
get a ring set up at Truck World.
do not let that out. Okay, I'm sorry. We got to rein this back in for a minute because I got to give a little more introduction to Matt because not everybody knows Matt, just like not everybody knows Hannah and I. But let me introduce Matt and why we got him on the podcast today, despite the amazing stories we'll have. Um, so Matt Richardson is the vice president of KRTS Transportation Solutions. They're really a school and a training facility for the trucking industry. Matt runs, um, the Richardson family has a whole suite of businesses that serve the trucking industry and are really um, close personal and business friends of mine and increasingly of Hannah's and my boys. But Matt, tell us a little bit about the group of companies and the responsibilities that you hold there over education and training and what else you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So first off, thanks for having me, guys. It's a pleasure to be part of this. I love what you guys are doing as far as your social media and podcasts and the following. It's really cool to follow along and kind of see a different the family business side of things, but also always keeping in touch with what's going on in the industry. So thanks for having me on. I'm happy to participate. Yeah, KRTS. So we do have a number of businesses under the KRTS or Richardson family umbrella. KRTS being the main one, the first one, Kim Richardson Transportation Specialists. So we are a registered private career college. We provide a number of different training and educational programs for individuals that want to get into different careers in the transportation and construction industry. So AZ drivers, DZ drivers, dispatchers, heavy equipment operators. We have a number of registered programs for students to come in and take. And then we also do a ton of corporate training through KRTS. So we work with close to 500 companies. Those can be private fleets, for hire fleets, municipalities, different utility companies to provide them the training and education as well as some consulting that they need from the transportation side to safely and successfully run their companies and the transportation side of their companies. And then we have Transrep. Transrep is the lead and runs the National Recruiting and Retention Symposium, which has
We're big
become a
sponsors of.
absolutely. And thank you guys for your ongoing support of that. So that's become a big event in Canada. It's traveled across a number of different provinces with successful events at each. Transrep also has a whole another suite of services, but I won't get into that.
That's
And
her
then
sister's
we
gig. It doesn't matter. She can
Some white glove
talk her own when
experiences.
she comes on the show.
yeah, and then we also have an online publication, the Rearview Mirror, that's been around for years. Started as an actual newspaper, but obviously times change, and a number of years ago that went fully online. So
Okay.
we've been involved in the transportation industry for a long time, and it's an amazing industry, and I'm happy to be part of it.
Great. Well, thanks so much for joining us. One of the things that we're doing in this kind of series of podcasts is we're talking about Trucking 101 and wanted to start with a school. And while there are some good schools in Ontario, I wouldn't say you're the only good school. You're just the only one that I like. And so I've got a great relationship with you guys. I trust you. I trust the product that you guys put out. I highly regard just the processes and the professionalism that you bring to the school industry. One of the things that Revolution Staffing was really about when we started in business, we had this phrase, changing the way you think about agencies. And because agencies have a black mark on them in a lot of people's minds, and we're here to change the way people experience the agency relationship. We want to add value to both the candidate and the client, and that's one of the things about the Richardson family and KRTS is. You guys are trying new things. You're not stuck in the way you've always done things. You're always innovating and looking at new things. But much more than that, you really value the people that you serve, both the industry and the candidates. And I see you building into them and helping them get placed and caring about them. And I think you have best in class trainers. And I just can't say enough good things about KRTS. If I've only ever referred one training school to people that I talk to in the industry, and that's always KRTS because I it's worth as they used to say at the old Hidehouse, it's worth the drive to Caledonia. And so and it's a drive, folks. Let me tell you. Okay, these guys are in the middle of Caledonia. And if you don't know where Caledonia is, that's because nobody knows where Caledonia is. Okay,
We're an hour from everywhere.
they're an hour from everywhere. That's amazing.
It makes
And
sense.
one
You're probably
day,
an hour from the border, an hour from Toronto. Sorry.
We're an hour from border, hour Toronto, hour from London.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah, no, they're like in this great little spot off the shores of Lake Erie, so they're not like right on the shores of Lake Erie, but easily get to it and easily get to the Hammer, so they can get into Hamilton, enjoy all of that. They've got the Niagara Peninsula right there. It is a sweet little spot they're in. And if you're looking for a cool little town to live in, check out Caledonia. Um, so that's my best plug for your hometown. I did buy a car in Caledonia one day. I was searching for, in 2008, I was searching for a great deal on a Ford Edge, and I negotiated with car dealerships all over Ontario by phone and finally finished in Caledonia and bought the car out
Beautiful.
there. But so trucking industry, it's in your family, it's in your blood. Your dad's been servicing the industry since he was a young man. But help us understand, how you got caught up in it. How did you not go into computer programming or something flashy and sexy when you were coming out of school?
Yeah, so I mean, I started working in the family business, and I tell anybody who asks, and I think it's even in some of my bios that I started working as soon as I was old enough to hold a scrub brush. So I was cheap child labor. It didn't cost much at that time to get me in on Saturday or Sunday mornings or afternoons to look after washing the trucks. Um, it started out obviously I couldn't do it on my own. I was helping dad do it, but once I got old enough that I had the strength to actually hold a power washer while it was running, I could look after that. So started out doing that, and then just little jobs here and there. Cutting the grass, weed whacking around the yard, sweeping out the shop. Just little stuff that needed to be done. Um, Jump forward a number of years. I went away to university, and each year that I came back from university, the plan was that I would spend that summer with a different part of the organization. And each summer, I would also go through one of the training programs that we offered. So, one year I came back and I spent the entire summer with the customer service team. Another year I came back, I spent the entire summer with scheduling, and that took place all the way through university, where I was learning a different part of the business each summer. And then each summer I would also, one summer I got my heavy equipment certificate. Another summer I did the dispatch. I didn't do the AZ until I was actually out of university. Just time wise, it didn't make sense. But that was one of the first things I did once I was out of school and back to work full time was get my AZ, because if I was going to be talking to people about what they were getting into and what the training was like, the belief, and I'm glad this was impressed upon me. The belief was that in order to sell it, I needed to know what the individuals themselves were going to go through. So
Wow, that's so let me just stop you there because that's such a great thing. One, I love the intentionality of breaking the business into different elements and every summer focusing on a different aspect of it so you could come in with a more full understanding of everything that goes on in the organization. And then secondly, I just so highly respect you doing the things that you were going to sell and the training that you were going to present and eventually preside over. You know it, you've experienced it. That's a great thing.
yeah, absolutely. And I feel like it definitely did give some credit. When I was speaking to potential students or customers that although I'm the farthest thing from a truck driver, I have my license, but I'm nowhere close to a professional driver. But it did give some credit to this person has gone through it. He can talk to me about aspects of the program and kind of help me understand what I might feel, where there may be some hang-ups, what he struggled with compared to what I'm struggling with. So it definitely helped.
Okay.
Matt, what would your definition of that be, a professional driver compared to someone who has their license?
What a great question, Hannah. A professional driver, in a sense, is really no different from what we look and consider other professionals. They're someone that takes pride in their job. There's someone that continues with ongoing education and training. There's someone who's worried about not only the safety of them, but the safety of people around them.
Mm.
And it's someone that when they get asked what they do, they're proud to say that they're a professional driver.
Mm.
Mm.
That's
I
so
I,
like
I
cool.
don't
that.
know how to I don't know how to break it down.
No, I like
And
that. It's ownership over what you do in every way, shape, and form. Like, I mean, you've got the value of your own career, you value it yourself, you value it externally to the other people around you, but then it's also the continual education, making sure that you're up to date. It's the safety of other people, taking care of your surroundings, and then the pride in your own job. I think that you described that really well. I appreciate that. That's
I mean, we could do a whole nother podcast. There wouldn't be time on this one to talk about why it needs to be a Red Seal apprentice.
Yeah.
Um,
Put
but
yeah. I think we could all talk about that for a couple
put
hours,
that on the
actually.
list. That's like I am such a proponent of that. Let's get that on the list of things to talk about, and we'll bring Matt and um, Angelique, who just won the Women with Drive annual award. She's a big proponent of that. Let's bring that conversation back around. That's a really good conversation. Um,
yeah, you got, and hopefully the ball continues to get moved down the field with that. I think you're going to see some movement as far as some of the associations that represent our industry start to push that a little harder. It's very important.
yeah,
And if we're going to get this profession and career to where it needs to be, that's a really key part of it.
yeah. I
Mm.
totally agree with that. And generally, like I want to be careful how I say this, but I hate people that are like arrogant and like I'm a professional accountant or I'm a professional because I'm a doctor or a lawyer. Like bull crap. Okay, you guys spend 1,000 hours maximizing and getting amazing at what you do, just like a truck driver does, just like a welder does, just like a salesperson does, just like a nurse practitioner does, or a nurse or a social worker. They're all professions. Professions are about what we do every day when we go to work and how much you care about it and how much you believe in it and how you improve yourself over time at it, and that there's some hierarchy of I'm a white collar princess because I blah 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 blah. Sorry, I,
I
I've,
love it.
I've been
White collar
too
princess.
much Tim Allen
Woo!
lately, and anyways, yeah, like I just like these people that are prima donnas because they got like 8 years of education of learning the same thing over and over and over again. I have no great respect for that. I have respect for people that care, that actually show up and frankly give a bleep every single day. And so much of life is just about showing up and giving your all. And somebody help me get off this hobby horse.
Okay, so tell me something about what every four-wheeler should know about truck drivers. So every person who's ever just on the highway, on the road, maybe not even like a four-wheeler, maybe a two-wheeler, maybe it's a motorbike, motor
Yeah.
bicycle. What's the
Motorcycle.
motorcycle?
There's
That's the word. What do
there's
they need
so
to know?
there's so much. I mean, what the easiest answer is, just how um, to they need to understand the size, the height, the width, the weight, that operator is under the responsibility to safely get down the road.
Hmm.
I mean, if you had to give me the one main thing, would be understand their blind spots.
Mm.
Um, because I mean that's where a lot of issues stem from on the road. And if every four wheeler, two wheeler fully understood where those blind spots of a driver are, and I'm not trying to take any onus off the drivers that are out there that make mistakes, because that does happen.
I
But
want to
the
know.
road would be
I want to
the
know.
roads.
Where is it? Let's show
Well,
people.
we're gonna be on opposites here, so I can't really show you
So
show you. But basically, at each side of the vehicle, they have a blind spot.
Yeah.
Out to the front, there is a blind spot. In the rear, there is a blind spot, and then down to the right and left off the fronts of the vehicle.
Yeah.
so
Wait, in the front, I didn't know that. That's really interesting. Help explain that to me.
Hannah, how tall are you?
I'm 5-0.
Okay. Matt, how tall is the average truck at the hood? It's going to
Oh,
be more than
yeah,
5-0.
probably would be around Hannah's forehead. Yeah,
Yeah. So
Oh,
so
so
when
no
he's sitting
duh,
in
there's
the
a blind
chair
spot.
and he's looking out over the hood and you're walking right in front, if you're in the first 5 feet or 3 feet, he might not see you at all, depending on the
yeah,
construction of the truck. And like, so you can walk in front of him and not see it. We saw this. We had one of the things we did for our Christmas party this year. Hannah wasn't at it because she just got married. We didn't invite Hannah to the Christmas party because she just got married. No, she she
I
was
was on my honeymoon.
she was on her
It's a
honeymoon,
priority.
otherwise detained. Um, anyways, we had a truck come to our office from one of our clients, and all of our recruiters and payroll people and everybody in our organization climbed up into the truck, sat in the driver's seat, and then we walked in front of the truck just to show them this. And they were like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe that! That's so scary." And then,
yeah,
and I've seen it, and we may do this at Truck World here in a couple of weeks. Is have people sit in the truck and kind of look through the mirrors to try and see what they can see beside them, but there's a cone that goes out on each side, not really at
yeah.
45 degrees, but like a little bit less, maybe 30 degrees out from the mirrors, that is totally blind until you're
Like
like
really far
as that
behind.
triangle goes out, it spans out like behind the trailer. It's the full length of the trailer in certain aspects, and so you just have to be really careful when you're moving around trucks. But I think the thing that I think of those things that people don't know. And Matt, tell me what you think of this. The biggest issue is the weight and the impact of weight on stopping
Yeah.
distance in a truck.
Mm.
I can't tell you how many times I've personally, in my career in transportation, passed too close in front of a truck because I'm a horse's ass. And then oh crap, I shouldn't have done that, because that guy could have crushed me. And I'm trying to get better at it. I am trying to be more mindful of it. I'm trying to be less of a horse's ass. All of those things are true, but people just don't think of it. What they make aggressive moves that seem logical to them, that if they had the knowledge of the truck driver, they would never do.
And it's
Yeah.
hard because oftentimes people are driving, they don't, like you said, they don't know anything. And drivers, like people who are driving, professional drivers, are often leaving much larger spaces in front of them because they need the space to stop. But people are seeing it as a space that they can then sit in. And it's like, no, 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 that was there for a reason. And it was not for you to put your butt in that spot. So that is really important to know. I appreciate that. The blind spots are just
And
so much more wide.
can I say that in the US, particularly in Florida, it's way worse. So like
It
in
is.
Ontario, drivers are bad, don't get me wrong. They're not as bad as Montreal, but in Florida, it's like they're all as bad as Quebec drivers. Matt,
I
so
think it's so much worse. I think it's
what's
so
your
much worse than
thought?
Quebec
What's your thought
drivers.
about the weight versus blind spot issue? Which is greater risk?
No, I think they're both. I think they're both very good points. I mean, the stopping distance is a very valid point, and the weight, not only the weight affects it, but what type of climate you're driving in, what the road surfaces are like. There's a lot of different factors that can affect stopping distance.
Sure.
So that's a valid point. I would still personally feel like if the regular road user had the education and awareness of the blind spots, it would be a big help.
Yeah.
Do you think that that's something that would ever get passed in the driver's test? I mean, like everyone goes through it, everyone gets a license at some point. They have to have a set of skills and knowledge. Like, is that something that would ever be put in the, like, you need to know your spatial awareness around you when you're driving for
Yeah,
just G1s?
G1.
yeah, and it is included in certain curriculum, but I mean, let's face it, when it comes, and we offer driver's ed here as part of our suite of services to 15 and 16-year-olds. Um, driver's ed is, you have 15 and 16-year-old kids. They pay as much attention in
As a
driver's ed
15 or 16-year-old
as
would.
they need to in order to pass the program. So
Mm.
educating at the young age when they're getting involved is important, but I think there's some ongoing education that can take place to make sure that our four wheelers and two wheelers just understand the space that is required around a commercial vehicle.
Yeah.
Mm, I like that.
Yeah. It's such an interesting thing. I'm just thinking about placards and signage that you see on the sides of trucks, and so often you see the wide
The one
right
on the back.
turn, the wide right turn
Yeah,
thing, um, and like I can't imagine how many vehicles get crushed in getting caught trying to speed up the lane during a wide right turn. That's like got to
yeah.
happen every.
And there's some stickers out there that companies have too, as awareness, if for the blind spots, if you can't see me, I can't see you, is one that you do see, which basically means if you can't see the driver in their mirrors, or if you can't see them when you're up next to them, or kind of off their corner, they can't see you.
Wow,
I like that.
that's startling. That is startling when you actually think about how infrequently you can see a driver in the truck, even like using their mirrors to kind of try and peer in. It's and that's the thing about a professional driver is right, like their head is always on a swivel, like they're just always looking at everything.
Yeah.
I had a motorcycle for a couple of years. I've had a couple of motorcycles a couple of times, and I never.
He keeps thinking he's gonna like them, and then he gets rid of them because he doesn't use them enough.
I love motorcycle riding. I love it, but I'm scared of dying on a
So,
motorcycle.
I think
I'm
that's
happy.
awesome.
I'm actually happy to die. I'm ready to meet my maker. All of that stuff is in good check. But doing that on a motorcycle, I'm actually more afraid of bouncing my head off the ground and laying in a bed
Becoming a
for 20
vegetable.
years.
Yeah.
Um, and
well,
so
you guys are in Florida too, right? Like they don't have helmet laws.
no, no, and riding
Yeah,
without a helmet is awesome. It isn't like it is a very pleasurable experience.
I bet.
Not smart. I've got some of my worst sunburns doing that.
I
But
wouldn't know. I've never ridden a motorcycle without a helmet. Couldn't do it.
good,
Wouldn't do it.
good answer,
My,
Hannah. Your father swore you would die if you ever did, so that is the right answer. Yeah,
I don't know what you're talking about. Can you do that?
no, you can't.
Anyways,
No, you can't. I think that motorcycle should come live at my house, not at your new house. Just by the way. Um, anyways, so there was another question I wanted to ask you. Just kind of talk to us a little bit about the next generation and um, and why they should take a serious look at the trucking industry. So, like now you're in the industry 10 or 12 years.
Yeah, I started full time 2012, winter of 2012, I think.
Okay, yeah, so 12 years. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about, that ride for you. What's that been like? You've been riding on somebody's coattails, which is a nice way to ride. But I don't think that's unfair to say, is it?
No, absolutely. It's
You're
it's a
you're
fair
definitely
comment.
making your own name and you're definitely making your own way, but you did have kind of uh, a nice way to get in.
Yeah, 100%. It'd be naive for me to, or for anybody in that matter who would be in similar situations, to take any offense to that comment. I mean, you can ride on coattails, or have some doors that are propped open for you that maybe wouldn't be to others. That in order to make your own name and continue to have a solid reputation for both yourself and your family business, it's on you to keep those things moving forward. So sure, the doors can be open and the coattails can be ridden on, but once you get to a certain point, it's 100%
You,
on you.
yeah.
um, and for me, then I've had this question asked before, and I've talked about it on different panels that I've been on. It's, some say, oh, isn't it great, or it must be great, whatever kind of smart ass remark that you want to make. And in one sense, yeah, it is great, but in the other sense, I think if you're going to be good at what you do, the responsibility and the burden you feel to make sure that it's not on you if things go backwards, or the company then fails with this person that rode coattails, um, to get there, that responsibility is even greater.
Oh,
Because
the
I
burden the
don't
burden of
want to
it
be
the burden of it is massive, and then you also have to overcome, you know, how do you become your own person in that environment? Like, this is true for
absolutely.
both you and Hannah very much. Your dad and I have, people like us or they hate us.
Yeah,
And you guys are much, much nicer people than either your dad or I. And so you've got to build bridges with people that hate us, and you've got to live up to the maniacal ways of us as it relates to people that love us. And so,
yeah,
like, that's got to be a unique balance all in of its own.
yeah. And let's face it, and I'm sure Hannah, you can probably comment on this too. As a, well, not child anymore, we're adults, but as a child of someone who is in the industry and has a reputation for themselves, we get introduced, or when we were getting into things, got introduced to people that if we were starting on our own, probably wouldn't have. But there's lots of people in this industry, and it's amazing that we can get those introductions through our parents. But let's face it, if we were idiots or unprofessional or rude, doesn't matter the connection those people have to our parents, they're not going to give us the time of day, either, right? Like Dave, I was introduced to you at a younger age. If I And yes, at that point you gave me the time of day because of your relationship with Kim. But if I did anything to make a bad impression, a poor impression, you're not going to have those follow up conversations with me and continue to give me the time of day and respect that you do.
Right, absolutely, absolutely. And there's always the risk that that person who's giving you that time, based on family relationship, is going to go back to that family relationship and say, "Hey, you need to tune that dude up. You need
Yeah.
to tell her this." And I've never had any conversations with your dad about anything like that. I've only ever seen you in the most professional environments. I've never had anybody come to me in regards to Hannah whatsoever. I think the uniqueness for the both of you is really interesting. Matt, you've been the young leader in the industry for 10 years. And Hannah's starting to get some opportunities to be seen that way. And from her Gen Z perspective, you're an old dude now. Um, and so balancing that all out is kind of interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess to circle back to your question a bit on, I think it was what, how do we get the next gen, or what do we do
Yeah,
for the
yeah.
next gen?
How do we bring the
Or
next
just
generation?
understanding, or just understanding like why it would be a beneficial thing for them to even have interest in. Like if you're talking about this whole concept of red seal, drivers are becoming, in my personal opinion at least, much more professional as time progresses on. And so that would be my draw. I'm like, come on in, like we're changing, it's getting better, it's getting more professional, like it's turning a corner. But I'd love to know from you, yeah, just what why the draw is
Yeah,
there.
there's a number of different branches we can take from this, but if we're talking specifically about the driver, um, one of the main things that needs to change is how this career gets talked of at the grade 9, grade 10, grade 11, grade 12 level.
Thank you.
A, a career in driving should not be considered a last choice career. And in a lot of our high school counselor offices, that is still what's being done.
Because they're
Uh,
professionals. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And we have no issue pushing someone who's not on a university path to get into a trade as a electrician or masonry, whatever the case may be, but not a career as a professional truck driver. Why is that? There are a ton of people in this industry, and some get in as a driver and they stay as a driver their entire career and provide for their families and have a good living. Others come in as a driver, and 10 years later, they're into office and management and supervisory roles. It's not one direct career path.
Yeah.
Um,
And they
you know,
skip the
I
4-year education and a massive
well,
load of debt to do it.
that's the other thing, and I share this with people who kind of are on that fringe of making a decision on what they're going to get into. Going the trade route, maybe a driver. There's not many professions out there, careers out there that for under well, I mean, the pricing of AZ training can be debated all day, and whether it's a
Under
reputable
twenty thousand dollars, say.
non-reputable school. I'll reference ours. So you're somewhere between 8 and 10 grand to get an AZ license. You can be graduated, and licensed within 6 weeks. You can then go to work, or should go to work, for a reputable carrier or company who's going to put you through their own training and finishing program.
Don't go work for
Uh,
your uncle.
yeah, you're making a very sustainable living right out of the gate for a small investment when you compare the price of college, university, whatever the case may be. And I'm not talking negative about either of those routes either, but
They're
this
just
route
different.
on the driver should be provided as an option much more than it is now.
Sure.
I agree. So let me ask you a couple questions then. For anybody who's watching, let's say there's somebody right now who's never thought about transportation. They're a regular 4-wheel driver. They have their license, but they're starting to get interested in the concept of
Mhm.
transportation. They're like maybe starting to think about, ooh, maybe a driver, maybe I should do that. Maybe that's super cool. What's the first thing that they should do?
They should touch base with anyone in their close circle that either A, may be doing that profession or has a connection to that profession to better understand what it entails.
Hmm.
They should also do some research on their own as far as getting to it. There's so many different, if we're again talking specifically for drivers, there's a lot of different driving jobs that are out there,
Hmm.
Yeah.
right?
Can we talk about that?
Years and years.
Can we talk about that just for a minute, just to give some people some perspective? Because, like, I think that everyone is familiar with 18 wheelers driving down the highway, um, but and then certainly people understand garbage truck drivers because they see them in their subdivisions and stuff like that. But let's talk about some of the other kind of unique um, roles or things that people can do as a driver that are kind of cool or different. Tell me some neat
Yeah.
experiences you've had, Matt.
There are so many of them, and we work with a number of different types of companies to place our drivers, everywhere from your typical dry van pin to pin stuff, where as a driver you're not really touching any of the freight. You're picking up your trailer, you're going point A to point B. then maybe to point C to get another trailer. That could be typically that's long haul stuff. You got flatbeds, tankers, curbside is if you're someone who's in decent shape and want to make a great living, curbside delivery where you're into the towns and the cities going to restaurants, convenience stores, different types of retail, cement trucks, water trucks, floating heavy equipment, floating oversized materials. You could go on
Right.
and on.
Right.
Um, and the industry has gotten away from, if I go back to kind of when I started in 2012, 2013, for the most part, if you were an entry level driver, long haul was basically your only option.
Yeah.
Now with the way the industry's gone, that's not the way it is. Maybe 25% of our graduates end up going long haul out of the gate.
Wow.
The other 75% are getting spread across those other different segments of the industry that I talk about, whether it's
Sure.
you know
Well,
the
it's really,
the 500-mile radius, or there's so many different options out there.
yeah, there really is. It's amazing. I was talking with a friend of mine who spent his whole life working in ministry. He was a pastor. He was like a counselor pastor kind of guy, and he retired at 60 from full-time ministry, um, and wanted something to do part-time, and he went out and got a DZ license, um, and went to a cement truck company in his town. He's making like right around $30 an hour,
Yeah,
working 50 hours a week when he wants to. So in the winter, he doesn't work very much. He goes to Florida. He goes to his
yeah,
timeshare. He goes to see his daughter out on the East Coast. He goes to see his kids. And then during the summer months, from kind of April 1st until November 1st, when he wants to work, he's making $1,500 a week every week. And when he goes into overtime, he's making $45 an hour,
Dollars an hour.
right? And there's lots of work for that guy.
yeah,
I think of another guy that I know that I really like. He's got a young family. He's probably 32. He drives trucks with floats, and he's floating heavy equipment all over Ontario. He's making like $32 an hour. And he's a high school graduate. He didn't do any college. He kind of grew up on a farm and knew that he wanted to work with his hands and his body all the time. He wanted to stay fit and keep in shape, and so that gets him in and out of the truck. It gets him up and down off the floats. He's driving other types of equipment. He's actually like a perfect student for you guys, where you can get both heavy equipment and AZ driving licenses. And he's making good money. His wife doesn't work. She stays home and takes care of their two kids. He can make a good living in Ontario, living in a home outside of Barrie, Ontario, and has a great life.
yeah.
Um,
And that's what we tell our students on our career college side. Some want to look at it as I need to get out of school, graduate, go make a quick buck, and they end up at companies who aren't reputable, don't do things the right way, aren't worried about the maybe long-term success of that driver. But we stress long-term sustainable careers, and that decision starts with the first fleet or whatever type of company you go to work for out of
oh,
school.
that's so
You
smart.
need to make you need to make a decision that puts you in the best possible spot for a long-term sustainable career.
Yes,
I like
make
that.
good
Setting yourself
decisions
up for
today.
success.
Setting yourself up for success.
Absolutely.
Make good decisions today for 10 years from today. Like your future self enough. My wife says, setting myself up
Eh,
for future success. And
Yeah.
so that's why she cleans the house before we go on vacation. So when she comes home and she's dead tired because I run her all over North America, she can just, hey, the house is clean. Whereas
Yep.
I leave everything a hot mess when I leave, and I come back and I'm like, oh man, I'm exhausted. I got to get off my desk.
So maybe this is a great way to wrap it. Matt, what in your perspective is a good way to understand that good company and to sniff out the ones who aren't going to treat you well? Because it's not always easy to understand. You can come, you can sit in an interview, you can ask the questions, but like how do you know when that's going to be bad in your perspective?
there, there's a lot of different questions you can ask. We actually provide our students with a list of questions to ask the companies that they're going to interview with.
I like that.
Um,
Like just so
but
intentional.
again, when you're interviewing for that first job, or even if it's a second career type job, you're nervous going in there. You don't necessarily know all the know what to ask or what to look for, and you think you're just going to be the one ask or answering the questions. But there's questions that you can ask to try to get the truthful, transparent answers. I mean, the main thing for an entry level student or an entry level driver who's graduated is walk me through your finishing program, walk me through your training program, and talk to me about what that looks like. Because when you leave school, you're not ready to have the keys thrown at you, and here's a load to California.
Hmm.
That's not the way good companies do it. So walk me through what your training and finishing program looks like. Walk me through what the touch points are. Am I going to have a connection, or am I connected to someone that if I need something when I'm on the road, once I'm out of the finishing and mentorship program, that I know I can reach out to them for help and support?
I even
What
love,
does that look like?
yeah,
Right?
I
Because
even
mentorship. Sorry, go ahead, Hannah.
No, you're good. I was just gonna say I love the way that you phrase that walk me through because it's such an open-ended question. It's like you're not asking fine-tuned details. It's not am I taking that second truck in the lineup outside. It's help me understand what's going on here, and then you're leaving such a wide room for information to come back to you. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Matt.
No, all good. The mentorship of an entry level driver shouldn't end 2 weeks after, 4 weeks after, six, whatever the company's training and mentorship program they have should not end when that final signature goes on the document saying we are confident in this person's abilities, and now they are graduating out of the finishing program. That
Yeah.
mentorship needs to continue for an entry level driver from a touch point end, into their career. And then the other question I think that people should ask when they're getting into this um, is talk to me about your career path. What As a driver, what does the career path look like at your company? Is it just I'm going to, and not that there's anything wrong with it, am I just going to be a driver for all of my time here, or can I go from this type of driver to advance to maybe this type of driver to advance to maybe where I am a driver mentor, or doing something in driver relation? Where does it go from that?
Mm,
Career paths are important.
I like that. That's so important, though, just like the intentionality that you give that. This is so vital, and you need to understand this. So, like, here's the list. Like, and you're right, because when you're going into those situations, when you're going into those interviews, those people are probably pretty nervous, pretty scared. Like, it's a big step. They're moving on to a different career. It's a big move for them. And to be outside their comfort zone can probably be a little intimidating. Just like what you said, they don't necessarily know all the terms that that company is using, or they don't, like, they're not fully prepared. And so just to give them that piece, I think is so beneficial.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that that's great. I think, it's really an example as to why when you graduate from school, you're better to go off and work for a professional organization that prides themselves in being among the best fleets in Canada or in the US, that really um, prioritizes having professional drivers, and that
Absolutely.
if they prioritize safety and professional driving, they have a good finishing product. They have a good way of training you and taking you to be an expert. And then they also have a good way of transitioning you to be um, the next thing that you want to be. And if that's in safety or in driver relations or in operations, or like, it should be a pathway to something. And so I really appreciate the way that you said that. Yeah, I think that this has been a great conversation, guys. Matt, what is one thing that um, you have learned about driving a truck in the last kind of 2 or 3 years, that you know, obviously you've been through training, you've been a student, you have your CDL in Canada, but we're always learning new things. Is there a circumstance or a situation that you found yourself in the last period of time that you're like, oh man, I wish I had thought of that before, that might be helpful for people to know or understand?
Yeah, I don't know how helpful what I'm going to say will be to people going forward, but I mean, what struck a chord with me, and I think a lot of others during the pandemic, was just some of the stuff that the drivers had to go through.
Mm.
Um, that you really had empathy for them. I think people needed to have some more empathy towards them and what they were going through. It's an old adage, but if you got it, a truck driver, professional driver, a truck brought it, however you want to word that, is definitely the truth, and more people need to realize that.
Mm.
Um, Everything that we use on a daily basis, everything we consume, it got to the shelves, it got to our door, it got to a production line, um, from a truck and a driver at some point. And we as a society need to realize how important these drivers are to our daily lives.
That's a
I
great
love that.
closing statement. I really appreciate you saying that. I wonder how many times during this Trucking 101 that theme is
We'll hear that.
across. But like the reality is that people, we're so individualistic. We're so self-centered as human beings. That's the way we are wired. Um, and we just don't think outside of ourselves. But when you take time to put context to situations, you come to understand that everything that you have, someone else touched. And in this case, as it relates to trucking, everything you have has been on a truck multiple times. It was on a truck when it came from the spot where it was grown or initially built to a place where it was modified and changed into something closer to what you wanted. And then it was taken to a distribution center. And then it was taken to a retail center or directly to your home. And then
Yeah,
you picked it up and put it in your mouth. And so it's been on a
yeah,
truck 4 times before it got on your fork or on your body. And
yeah.
it's just important for people to realize and understand that. Matt, thanks for saying that and sharing that with us.
Absolutely. And thank you guys for having me on. I appreciate the opportunity, and I appreciate what you guys are doing with this, and just trying to bring more awareness to an industry that us three know is amazing and can do great things for our families and careers, but that more people need to understand how great it is.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
great.
Well,
Thanks so much for your
this has
time.
been great. Thank you.
Great. Have a good day, guys.
You guys too.